Friendsify you want to watch super hit movie Madea's Destination Wedding in English, then you must like this video if you are visiting our channel for the first time. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, friends. In today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Madea's Destination Wedding. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to give you all the information on which OT platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch. This movie also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production filming, post-production budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film storyline, star-cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video. Till the end, let's start the video. Madea's Destination Wedding is a 2025 American comedy film produced, written, and directed by Tyler Perry and his sixth film to be released by Netflix. It was released on July 11, 2025. Perry reprises his role as Mabel Madea Simmons. It is the 13th film in the Madea cinematic universe. The film received negative reviews according to Rotten Tomatoes. Plot: Madea and her extended family travel to the Bahamas for a surprise wedding after her grandniece Tiffany announces her sudden engagement to her new fiancé, Xavier. The couple intends to marry in just 2 weeks, prompting the entire family to join them at a resort. Tensions quickly rise. Brian is suspicious of Xavier, whom he sees as immature, and he questions Tiffany's decision to marry someone the family has never met. Complicating matters further, Tiffany's mother, Deborah, appears overly eager to push the wedding forward, raising additional concerns. During the trip, Madea overhears a conversation revealing that Tiffany stands to inherit a $1 million trust fund upon marriage. It is further uncovered that Deborah was aware of this condition and had been encouraging the wedding for financial reasons without disclosing the truth to Tiffany. After Madea reveals this information, a betrayed Tiffany calls off the wedding. The situation becomes more complicated when Brian believes he has caught Xavier being unfaithful, only to learn that the woman in question is Xavier's estranged mother. Following a discussion about his past, Xavier reassures Brian of his intentions toward Tiffany. Tiffany, overhearing their conversation, decides to give the relationship another chance. Cast: Tyler Perry as Madea, Joe Simmons, Brian Simmons, Cassi Davis Patton as Aunt Bam, David Mann as Mr. Brown, Tamela Mann as Cora, Taja V. Simpson as Deborah, Diamond White as Tiffany, Jermaine Harris as BJ, Xavier Smalls as Xavier. Production. In January 2024, it was announced that a new film in the Madea cinematic universe, titled Madea's Destination Wedding, was in development, with Tyler Perry directing, writing, producing, and reprising his role as Mabel Madea Simmons. Principal photography began at Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta from January 15 to January 26, 2024, with additional filming taking place in the Dominican Republic. Release: Madea's Destination Wedding was released on Netflix on July 11, 2025. Reception: on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 13% of 15 critics' reviews are positive. Madea is back. Not that she's been away. Madea's Destination Wedding marks the 13th film appearance of Tyler Perry's brash and loud matriarch. Her last outing and first on Netflix, Madea's Homecoming, was 3 years ago. She has not changed in the interim and remains endearingly obnoxious, teetering somewhere between comical and tedious. The same goes for her latest film. The plot does not matter, as it serves as a situation generator for Perry's character to get into trouble, deliver one-liners, and wax poetic with life advice. It's a formula that he's perfected and which his audience expects with habitual regularity. In what qualifies as high concept by Madea movie standards, the character is transplanted to a resort in the Bahamas along with her family and the usual hangers-on. Madea, her brother Joe, also Perry, but in different makeup, and Joe's son Brian, Perry looking most like himself, travel for the wedding of Brian's daughter, Tiffany Diamond White. Along comes Brian's duplicitous ex-wife Deborah, Taja v. Simpson, his nerdy son BJ, Jermaine Harris, and the groom Xavier, Xavier Smalls. This party wouldn't be a party without Medea's entourage. Bam, Cassi Davis Patton, boisterously ready with sexual innuendos, Mr. Brown, David Mann, constantly trying to make catchphrases stick, and the comparatively calm voice in the group, Cora, Tamela Mann. Perry tries to wring comedy out of every situation this travel plot allows. There's a visit to a government office to procure passports, a long dilly-dallying on the plane where Madea refuses to sit and coach, and more rowdy mischief when the plane hits turbulence. Before they decide to travel, the whole gang gathers to meet the groom and try to determine why this wedding is happening so fast. Cue the expected pregnancy jokes. Once they arrive in the Bahamas, jokes arise out of everything from running up huge tabs at the resort's restaurants and casinos to exploiting the venue for a bachelor party. Presumably already familiar with the characters, the audience gets every situation they expect. Even so, nearly every scene plays a bit too long. The characters keep at it until they exhaust the situation and whatever jokes it brings, to the point it stops being funny and starts to grow tiresome. One of the characters who plays it straight, like Brian, says something. Madea makes a joke, then every member of her Greek chorus must comment. This pattern is repeated ad nauseum for nearly every setup, making Medea's destination wedding so repetitive it loses the goodwill the otherwise likable character engenders. Perry tries to infuse intrigue along the way, leading to revelations galore toward the end. The reason why Tiffany is getting married quickly is resolved in the laziest way. Madea accidentally listens to a minor character speaking on the phone, revealing everything. Whatever the film is trying to say about familial relationships and how divorce affects children ends being a tad misogynist. In this story, the father's behavior is exemplary, and mothers, more than one, are selfish with bad habits who don't act to their children's benefit. Nestled within the loud proclamations and the extremely comedic characters, this might be lost on some viewers. However, it's a trend within Perry's oeuvre, as this is not the first time he has written these attributes for his female characters. Medea's destination wedding has lots of insanity that hurtles along with propulsive force. Then suddenly it screeches to a stop for a few scenes of earnest specifying. Medea's core audience might be used to this haphazard rhythm, but it would prevent the film from gaining any new fans. Perhaps at this point in Medea's successful trajectory, Perry is not looking to expand his audience. All's well and good then, as this film remains exactly what his audience has been getting for a long time. Tyler Perry wants to be taken seriously as a filmmaker, so this review of Medea's destination wedding will do so. Even though it's the latest in his series about his most famous character, the combative but good-hearted grandmama Mabel Madea Simmons, and is, like nearly all of the rest, fitfully amusing but slovenly and easily forgotten. In this one, Madea and company head to the Bahamas and get into shenanigans at a luxury hotel. It's unfortunately typical of Tyler Perry's comedy output. It runs an hour and 45 minutes, but feels much longer. A strain of misogyny runs through it. It doesn't introduce any story complications, much less any real stakes for the characters, until more than halfway through its running time. It largely consists of improv-heavy chunks of light clowning. That's a strange phrasing, admittedly, but what else do you call a scene that doesn't have anything resembling shape, much less a satisfying payoff? Perry, as usual, is the credited writer and director, in addition to playing multiple characters from Medea's family, the Simmons, including Medea's wild-haired, shambling, rascally brother Joe and their earnest son Brian, a prosecutor played by Perry without special makeup. The story begins with a comedy set piece. Madea, her ex-husband Leroy Brown, David Mann, and their daughter Cora, Tamela Mann, getting accosted at a gas station by would-be robbers, whom Madea bashes into submission with her purse. Then we jump to Joe and his ex-wife Deborah, Taja v. Simpson, a former drug addict who cleaned up and married a rich guy in a fancy restaurant where they are to be joined by their son BJ, Jermaine Harris, and daughter Tiffany, Diamond White. Tiffany shows up with a dreadlocked young man named Xavier Smalls, who exudes smugness and greets Joe with, "What's up, my nah?" This is the prospective groom that Tiffany wants her dad to approve of. She's never mentioned him until this moment. The destination wedding of the title has already been locked into place by Deborah's rich husband, who is prepared to foot the bill for both the bride and groom's families. Brian's pride prevents him from accepting. He's understandably peeved that Tiffany agreed to this scenario without introducing her man first, and thinks Xavier is a sleazy character. But Brian and other members of the family accept the arrangement and go to the Bahamas to support Tiffany, with Brian putting down a deposit for incidentals. It takes half the movie for them to get to the Bahamas, check in, look at their rooms, and experience the many splendid areas of the hotel, which include a casino and a huge water slide. The scene where they check in takes several minutes. So does the scene where they figure out the logistics of their lavish suite of rooms. There's a scene in a gift shop where lots of stuff is added to their bill, and scenes in the casino where Joe gambles and tells the house to add his tally to the bill. You can see where things are going. There's a funny, purposefully overwrought sequence where Xavier invites Joe and Leroy to his bachelor party. Joe convinces the pious and clean-living Leroy that it's a gospel-themed party, practically a church service. Leroy ends up surrounded by scantily clad twerking dancers, shrieks like a child, and sprinkles them with holy water. Perry is often a hoot, playing both Madea and Joe, who twerks very slowly while balancing on his cane. But there's a lot of flab in the scenes of banter and misunderstanding. The nutty professor. This ain't. Little thought has been given to how people end up where they need to be to overhear something they shouldn't, or interfere in a conversation that was supposed to be private. Sometimes people walk up and stand there in plain view, while the others remain oblivious to their presence. Farce should be more meticulous than this. It's like Perry isn't even trying. Quality control is low, even by his hit-and-miss, too many movies a year standards. You could say this is disappointing if Perry hadn't been mostly disappointing for a long time. From the start of his prolific, at times machine-like filmography, there have been times when he seemed to be evolving as an artist. I'm mainly thinking of Four Colored Girls, Mea Culpa, and A Jazzman's Blues, where he was more adventurous with camera placement, editing, and the expressive use of color. A Jazzman's Blues, based on his first screenplay, might be his best movie overall. It certainly has the best final shot. A Georgia man who just learned he's of mixed-race parentage and that his black father was lynched, sits down on his white mother's front porch, and the camera pulls back at such an angle that a Confederate flag above the entrance obscures our view of him. But just when it seems like Perry is about to level up as an artist, he reverts his default, which is half-assing it. Then there's the worldview. Perry is deeply religious and fundamentally reactionary in his politics. The plot of this one pivots on a father demanding that a daughter's fiancé earn his approval lest the marriage not happen. It portrays Tiffany with no personality, or it seems free will, and Deborah as a rich man's trophy wife who's trying to execute a secret agenda. And it's been sprinkled with a little bit of religiosity. So it makes a strange kind of sense that the parts of his films dealing with criminality, addiction, and any type of sex that isn't plain vanilla are shot more imaginatively than the parts depicting faith and goodness. A lot of filmmakers, even the great Martin Scorsese, who once wanted to be a priest, are more exciting to watch when they're depicting bad people. But the Perry films praised in this piece are melodramas, which by nature have to be intense and extreme in order to work, and Perry the actor usually doesn't appear in them, which must free him up to think about how the movie looks. Furthermore, a melodrama can be gripping even if you find its values unrefined or merely outdated. Example, almost any melodrama that was made prior to whatever decade you're in. The original Mildred Pierce is darkly pre-feminist in its portrayal of men and women. But that doesn't matter, any more than it matters if the values expressed in an opera or a blues song are retrograde. So really, it's all on Perry to make a great or even very good melodrama, and he hasn't done that yet. Why? Maybe he just doesn't want to commit to learning more about film history and technique than he already knows, because if he did, he'd have to make fewer movies. The comedies that star Perry as the still wildly popular Madea and various members of her family are funny junk. Collections of messy, overlong sketches with a smidge of narrative binding them together. The movie camera is a tool for artistic expression that has its own language and can speak so eloquently that dialogue is optional. You can see that Perry understands that in his melodramas, which range from pretty good to awful. But there's no trace of that Perry in the comedies. They seem cobbled together in editing and have no visual personality. Corporate training videos have more style. Perry usually just puts characters in a particular space, arranges them like pins on a clothesline, and lets the cameras run until he's gathered enough material for the editors to work with. Comedies like Medea's Destination Wedding do practice a high level of craft, but it mainly has to do with the skill level needed to turn ad-lib heavy acting into something coherent when you've got two or more characters played by Perry acting opposite each other in the same scene. There is clearly a bit of compositing involved, but much of it looks like the product of tricks as old as the movie camera itself. I.e., they set up the actors and shoot the scene several times from various angles, making sure to only have one Perry character visible at a time, or putting doubles in the foreground with a wig on. That's ingenious, in its elemental way. Peter Jackson did something similar in the original Tolkien trilogy, in scenes where big and small characters conversed. Admittedly, the logistics of filming a Tyler Perry film with Perry performing multiple roles is not what most viewers will be thinking about. But there's little else to recommend it except for the performances. The latest Tyler Perry movie, Medea's Destination Wedding, is now out on Netflix, and the film's ending is worth looking at in detail. Following a long list of Madea movies, the latest installment sees the family travel to the Bahamas in order for Tiffany to marry her new fiancé, a rapper named Xavier. Tyler Perry's best movies have looked at interpersonal dynamics, and Destination Wedding does this effectively. Between raucous and ridiculous jokes, the movie does a great job at setting up a strong cast of characters who feel heightened and funny while remaining realistic and relatable. With an exciting location and a large number of familiar characters, there's actually quite a bit that happens in the new film that follows up on stories and developments from previous installments. In order to understand where the Madea cinematic universe might go next, it is essential to look into the ramifications of this latest movie. Near the end of Medea's Destination Wedding, Brian overhears a conversation on the stairs between Xavier and another woman, and it looks to him as if Xavier is cheating on Tiffany. This misunderstanding gets blown out of proportion as the whole family comes together, leading to a tense conversation that separates Xavier and Tiffany. This is all based on a misunderstanding. The woman is actually Xavier's estranged mother, whom he did not want to come to the wedding. Amid all of this tension, the family almost becomes torn apart. Fortunately, thanks to action by Brian, who chooses to confront Xavier, the family is forced to come back together again. Xavier first appears near the beginning of the film, where he acts standoffish and cold. While it is difficult to have too much faith in his relationship with Tiffany, deeper details of the character are revealed as the film goes on. This culminates in a balcony scene where David admits that he has judged Xavier too harshly. In this conversation, Xavier reveals his dark past. He has sold drugs, and he is trying to do better. Xavier saw his brother get killed, and he wants to escape from that life. He feels connected to and emotionally supported by Tiffany, and he wants to do everything that he can to look after her for the rest of their lives. Seeing as the Madea character was based on true stories from Perry's life, the director knows that these stories and themes must be topical. Much of that is effectively communicated with the story of Xavier, whose complexities are slowly revealed through the film's runtime. Xavier is a young black man, and it is easy to judge him by his appearance. Brian reflects that he has done this too quickly and too harshly. There is still tension between the two characters, but Brian gives Xavier a chance, and the two are set up for a compelling future in the series. Another reveal occurs within the movie when the family hears Dennis talking on the phone, discussing his divorce from Deborah, which was hidden from the family. It is revealed that Dennis has plans to give Tiffany $1 million at her wedding. This seems to be why Deborah was pushing for her daughter to go through with the wedding despite her doubts. The family assumes that this is because Deborah hopes to take the money for herself. Fortunately, this is not the case, and conversations between her and her daughter make it clear that Deborah only wants what is best for her children. Deborah is a flawed character and not always a good mother, but she is trying to do better. At the end of the movie, Brian receives a shockingly thick bill that is as long as a phone book. It is revealed that David spent $9,000 on pornography and $43,000 at the casino, while Madea spent $14,000 on food, among other charges. A flashback montage of the family charging everything to the room throughout their stay occurs next. The price of the trip is substantial, and each member of the family has contributed some extravagant charge to the room. Considering Brian's stresses and strains about money through the film, including paying for the rooms themselves, this results in an insurmountable cost that is played for laughs. Overwhelmed, Brian faints in the lobby. The movie ends with Xavier and Tiffany finally tying the knot in a beautiful scene. With Tiffany growing up throughout the stories of the franchise, there could now be a future for their characters. Medea's family tree has continued to expand through these stories, and now her grandniece has brought another compelling family member into the fold. The future for Xavier and Tiffany could start a whole new generation. They are young and in love, and it would not be surprising if they started a family of their own to focus on in the next installment. Whenever another Madea movie is made, it will certainly follow up on the events of Medea's destination wedding. The lyrics draw from African American spirituals reimagined in a Caribbean context, blending steel drum cadence with gospel harmonies. This fusion captures the film's thematic heart, a diasporic gathering of souls trying to bless something unstable with the weight of tradition and hope. Sound mixing also plays a crucial role. In comedic scenes, music punctuates punchlines, crashing cymbals, comedic stings, record scratches. These are expected in Perry's style, but the brilliance lies in restraint, in scenes where silence or ambient noise could suffice. The score resists overstatement. It lets awkwardness linger. It lets pain breathe. This refusal to spoon-feed the audience with emotional cues elevates the quieter moments. Where Madza's destination wedding truly triumphs, musically, is in its ability to mimic real emotional rhythm. It doesn't impose feeling. It follows it. It allows comedy to erupt and then retracts, giving grief and doubt the room to echo. In a film that wears exaggeration like a crown, the music whispers the truth underneath, that love is messy, family is complicated, and not all happily ever afters begin with certainty. In the final analysis, the music of Medusa's destination wedding is more than background. It is breath. It pulses under the surface of every moment, guiding the viewer's heart, even when the script distracts the eye. Jong Nick Bontemp's score doesn't beg for attention, but it deserves it. It anchors a film known for chaos with something surprisingly sacred. Emotional resonance earned not through spectacle, but through subtle lyrical truth. Pre-production, designing a destination of dysfunction, before the chaos of characters clashing on screen. Before Madea dons her beach hat or delivers her first monologue, there is the crucible of pre-production, a phase that Tyler Perry has long transformed into an exercise in speed, control, and tactical design. With Madea's destination wedding, this phase was not just preparatory. It was foundational. It was here in the silent rooms of writer meetings, location scouts, production design, briefs, and logistical breakdowns that the world of Madea met the Caribbean fantasy. And that fantasy became a logistical challenge wrapped in comedy. Tyler Perry's reputation for rapid development cycles is legendary. Unlike most directors who may spend a year or more in pre-production, Perry typically compresses the entire phase into weeks. For Madea's destination wedding, the script was reportedly finalized by late 2023. Conceived during a break in Perry's other commitments, drawing on real-life anecdotes of destination weddings gone wrong, Perry envisioned a narrative that would allow him to both satirize and celebrate black family dynamics in a high-pressure, high-luxury setting. From the beginning, Perry insisted on a contained narrative structure despite the illusion of tropical openness. While the script called for a Bahamian resort setting, the production team knew early on that only a small portion of the film could be shot on location due to time and budget constraints. Thus, one of the first and most important tasks during pre-production was creating the illusion of paradise within the walls of Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta. This goal necessitated a comprehensive production design strategy spearheaded by the studio's in-house team. The art department spent weeks researching Bahamian architecture, resort layouts, color palettes, and environmental textures. They studied everything from the fabric used in poolside lounge chairs to the structural details of open-air pavilions and beach wedding setups. Their goal wasn't authenticity. It was cinematic believability. The pre-production team compiled a 200-page style book filled with reference images from Atlanta's Paradise Island, the Ocean Club, and boutique resorts across the Caribbean. These references would later inform set construction and digital background design. Set design blueprints were drawn up early. Spaces had to be modular and multifunctional. The same resort corridor could become a hallway, a lobby, or a hotel suite with just a few prop changes and camera redirection. A faux beach was constructed using imported sand, painted backdrops, and clever lighting designed to serve as both the ceremony location and a space for key emotional scenes. Every decision was mapped with Perry's signature economy, maximum yield with minimal waste. Simultaneously, the casting process overlapped with pre-production. While Tyler Perry had already earmarked regulars like Cassi Patton, Tamela Mann, and David Mann, he also sought younger, fresh talent to anchor the central romantic plot. Diamond White and Xavier Smalls were brought on after a round of closed auditions in late 2023. Their chemistry test, a requirement Perry personally supervised, was conducted on a mock patio set to simulate resort intimacy. Perry reportedly looked not only for performance chemistry, but also for actors who could handle improvisation under time constraints. Given his tendency to rewrite scenes mid-shoot, costume pre-visualization began as early as the final script draft. Tyler Perry and costume designer Crystal Hayes collaborated on a wardrobe plan that would reflect both character and context. Hazlitt's team curated lookbooks for each character based on their socioeconomic background, personality, and relationship to the wedding narrative. For example, Tiffany's wardrobe included bold floral prints and contemporary resort wear meant to reflect both rebellion and aspiration. Meanwhile, Mimde's outfits were designed to parody upper-class vacationers, wide-brimmed hats, gaudy jewelry, and exaggerated tropical prints. All costumes were fitted during early table reads to ensure actors could rehearse comfortably in their full silhouettes. Perhaps the most overlooked but vital aspect of pre-production was the scheduling architecture. Perry's entire production was structured around a tight 11-day shoot, meaning every second had to be pre-visualized. The assistant directing team created a color-coded calendar with scene breakdowns, rehearsal blocks, and contingency plans for weather delays. Since part of the film was shot in the Dominican Republic to capture real ocean vistas, an advance unit was sent a month ahead to lock down local permits, coordinate crew housing, and conduct lighting tests for the primary beach scene. Storyboard artists working with Perry and director of photography, Michael Watson, mapped out major sequences weeks before cameras rolled. Key emotional scenes such as the rehearsal dinner meltdown, the wedding ceremony, and Madea's private moment with Xavier were rendered in storyboard. Panels complete with lighting and blocking notes. These visual guides were distributed to all department heads, forming the backbone of on-set planning. The music department, led by Jong Nick Bontemp, was also looped into pre-production earlier than usual. Since Perry envisioned specific musical cues to punctuate both comedic and emotional Beats. Bontemps began drafting theme sketches based on the script alone. The music team used pre-recorded loops during rehearsal sessions, allowing actors to feel the tonal shifts music would later accentuate, especially in scenes with overlapping comedic rhythm and dramatic subtext. In keeping with Perry's self-contained production model, much of this pre-production was done in-house. Tyler Perry Studios functioned not just as a shooting location, but as a creative incubator. Costume fitting, set building, script readings, and camera tests all occurred on the same lot, allowing departments to operate with an unusual level of synchronicity. It wasn't glamorous, but it was efficient, and efficiency is Perry's trademark. In summary, the pre-production of Day's Destination Wedding was a masterclass in controlled chaos. It was not the sprawling, exploratory sandbox that some or filmmakers employ. It was a war room, a tactical, creative crucible where every detail had to align before the storm of production began. Yet within that rigor, Perry carved space for spontaneity, humor, and cultural specificity. The buck result is a film that, for all its comedic bombast, rests on a foundation of meticulously coordinated vision. The vacation may have been fictional, but the planning was all too real. Filming precision in paradise chaos on cue. Behind the tropical mirage of Day's Destination Wedding lies a production experience forged not in luxury, but in remarkable logistical precision. The filming of Tyler Perry's 2025 family comedy wasn't just a cinematic process. It was a symphony of tight schedules, modular sets, improvisational performances, and sun-drenched theatrics. In true Perry fashion, what took most productions months to complete was wrapped in just 11 days. And yet, in that constrained window, a world was born. One that glittered with bohemian warmth, but pulsed with the unmistakable rhythm of Southern familial chaos. Principal photography began in January 2025, with two core locations splitting the film's visual identity. Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, and selected exterior scenes shot on location in the Dominican Republic, standing in for the Bahamas. The decision to film partially outside of the United States was both strategic and symbolic. The Dominican Republic offered cost-effective island visuals, more lenient permit structures, and better control over crowd logistics. Key for a big production with such an aggressive timeline. At Tyler Perry Studios, the bulk of the interior scenes were captured across purpose-built sets that mimicked resort villas, banquet halls, lobbies, and beachfront balconies. These sets were meticulously designed during pre-production to serve multiple narrative functions, allowing the crew to redress spaces rather than relocate. For example, the hotel lobby scene during the family's chaotic arrival was redressed later to appear as a rehearsal dinner venue, then again for a morning after breakfast scene. This approach allowed Perry to shoot up to 10 pages of script per day, a staggering pace by industry standards. Filming days typically began at 6 a.m. with call sheets distributed digitally the night before to reduce downtime. Director of photography Michael Watson, a Perry veteran, employed a mobile camera rig setup, red digital cameras equipped with lightweight gimbals and LED-powered lighting rigs. This allowed swift transitions between setups and minimized equipment breakdown time. Watson's style during the shoot was practical rather than poetic. The aim wasn't artistic indulgence, it was clarity. Blocking was pre-mapped to allow cast mobility, and wide shots were often prioritized to capture overlapping dialogue without reshoots. Perhaps the most challenging and revealing aspect of the shoot was the cast's adaptability to Perry's hybrid directing method. Unlike directors who isolate scenes into controlled emotional pockets, Perry thrives on momentum. Cast members were expected to jump from comedy to sentiment without tonal rehearsal. Improvisation was welcomed, especially from Perry himself, who portrayed three central characters, Madea, Joe, and Brian, often shooting their scenes in rapid succession. This required double body stand-ins, heavy reliance on eyeline rehearsal, and costume continuity supervision. In scenes where Madea argues with Joe, Perry would film one side of the conversation first, switch wardrobe and physicality, and then reperform. against playback or an assistant reading lines. These dual role scenes, while visually seamless in the final cut, were meticulously blocked in real time. Each pause, reaction, and glance timed with a metronome's precision on location. Scenes in the Dominican Republic were filmed under tight climate control restriction. The beach wedding, a highlight sequence late in the film, was shot across 2 days in blistering heat, with cast and crew enduring 95 degrees temperatures and unpredictable coastal winds. The production team constructed a temporary altar using bamboo, silk, and floral decor flown in from Atlanta, while massive diffusion scrims were used to control light exposure on the open loft shore. Drone shots capturing the ceremony and family gathering were completed early in the morning to avoid foot traffic from nearby resorts, requiring cast call times as early as 4:30 a.m. These sequences, though brief, on-screen required intense coordination. Every wave, seagull call, and gust of wind was logged by sound and visual teams for post-production syncing. Throughout the shoot, Perry maintained a 2-camera setup on nearly every scene, allowing for master shots and inserts to be captured simultaneously. This not only reduced shooting time, but also enabled editors to stitch together reactions and cutaways with ease. In ensemble scenes, particularly the chaotic family breakfasts or poolside arguments, this method paid dividends. Performers were instructed to stay in character, even when not on camera, giving editors organic material to use as cut-ins. Filming was not without emotional intensity. A particularly notable moment occurred during a scene between Brian and his daughter Tiffany, where Brian questions her rush into marriage. The dialogue was rewritten just hours before, shooting with Perry handing Diamond White a revised monologue that softened Brian's disapproval into protective vulnerability. The scene was captured in a single take. Crew members later reported that the silence on set afterward was palpable, not out of shock, but from the resonance of the performance. Even in a film built around jokes and spectacle, there were beats of stillness, where raw emotion cracked through the facade. On-set morale, by most accounts, remained high. Cast members, many of whom are longtime collaborators within Perry's cinematic universe, treated the production as a family reunion. Between takes, Perry was often seen interacting with the crew, reviewing dailies in his director's tent, or improvising alternate jokes with Cassi Patton and David Mann. The atmosphere was collaborative, high energy, and occasionally chaotic, but always under control. First assistant director Reggie Knox ran the set like a tight ship, enforcing timelines while accommodating Perry's frequent ad-libs and character switchovers. Lighting setups were standardized across locations to maintain visual consistency. Despite the variance between Atlanta soundstages and Dominican exteriors, the film's color palette, golden sands, ocean blues, pastel resort tones, was mapped early through lots lookup tables and applied across scenes to preserve tonal cohesion. The result is a visual aesthetic that feels tropical without being overly saturated, lively without veering into parody. By the end of the 11th day, filming had wrapped with all principal footage captured. Pickup shots and drone passes were scheduled separately with a second unit. Editing began almost immediately, with Perry and his team reviewing rushes even during travel back from the Dominican Republic. In the end, the filming of Ma's destination wedding stands as a testament to what happens when precision meets personality. It is a portrait of streamlined filmmaking where every cast member, camera operator, lighting grip, and PA is part of a tightly wounded orchestra playing not for awards but for resonance. The laughter, the tension, the teardrops under beach umbrellas. They weren't accidents. They were rehearsed, rewritten, relit, and captured with purpose. And in that captured chaos, Perry once again stitched together a cinematic quilt. Stitched from family, faith, and farce. Post-production crafting cohesion from controlled chaos. Post-production is the quiet forge where cinematic intent becomes cinematic truth. For a film like Ma's Destination Wedding 2025, born of speed, structured around ensemble chaos, and sculpted through overlapping performances and modular sets, The post-production phase was not merely a final polish. It was an orchestration of order from creative entropy. With only 11 days of principal photography and a looming Netflix release window, Tyler Perry and his post-production team entered this stage like battlefield. Surgeons, cutting, stitching, and soundscaping their way to cohesion under pressure. As always in a Perry, production editing began while the cameras were still rolling. On-site dailies were reviewed each evening at Tyler Perry Studios, where the director and editors dissected performances, flagged ADR needs, and mapped scene transitions in near real time. Larry Stahn, a frequent collaborator and Perry's lead editor, helmed the process. Stahn's responsibility was monumental, transformed dozens of hours of ensemble footage filled with improvisations, dual character shots, and compressed shooting coverage into a seamless comedic narrative that felt expansive despite its confined resources. The editing philosophy for Ma's Destination Wedding was driven by three core goals: maintain pace, preserve clarity, and honor performance rhythms. Perry's script was dense with overlapping dialogue, quick reversals, and character beats that hinged on timing. Stahn's cut respected these rhythms, often choosing to let scenes breathe an extra second before cutting to reaction shots. This editorial patience helped balance the comedic punchlines with emotional undertones, especially in scenes involving Brian Perry and Tiffany. Diamond White, where generational rifts threatened to overshadow nuance. The film's narrative geography, though imagined to span a full island resort, was in reality fragmented between Atlanta sets and brief Dominican Republic exteriors. It fell to the editing team to stitch these fragments into a believable, fluid environment. Wide establishing shots captured via drones in the Caribbean were inserted between key scene changes to establish temporal flow. The color grade handled by Jessica Lame unified these environments visually. Lame leaned into a sun-soaked palette of turquoise blues, warm golds, and coral pastels, enhancing both tropical immersion and thematic brightness. But this color treatment wasn't merely cosmetic. It softened the visual discontinuity between soundstage and shoreline, allowing audiences to emotionally invest without spatial dissonance. Sound design, overseen by David Espasa, became a character in its own right. While the film relied heavily on spoken word and character-driven comedy, ambient sound was meticulously layered to give texture and atmosphere. Resort breezes, the buzz of poolside conversation, distant steel drum rhythms, and the faint squawk of seagulls were embedded into the audio landscape to compensate for studio acoustics. A challenge during post was integrating this environment into scenes, shot indoors, using a mix of location recordings and Foley work. Espasa's team blended the synthetic and organic into a cohesive oral backdrop. In several key scenes, especially the rehearsal dinner argument and the beach wedding ceremony, Perry's dialogue was largely improvised, leading to audio overlaps, dropped words, and inconsistent room tone. This demanded an extensive ADR automated dialogue replacement process. Perry, White, Smalls, and others returned to the studio to re-record dialogue lines, syncing them precisely with on-camera performance. Espasa employed dynamic EQ filters to match the ambient tone of each location, ensuring the audience remained immersed without auditory jarring. The score, composed by Nick Bontemps, was finalized during the picture lock phase. Bontemps' approach to post-scoring was reactive rather than prescriptive. He watched each edited scene to compose musical beats that matched character cadence. A wedding rehearsal scene with comedic interruptions, for instance, originally featured temp jazz tracks. Bontemps replaced them with a hybrid cue of calypso drums and muted piano, allowing the humor to land while subtly suggesting the undercurrent of familial anxiety. Final score was recorded with a mix of live session musicians and digital instruments mixed for clarity, rather than bombast. One of the unsung heroes of post-P-production was the visual effects VFX team, who were tasked with minor but crucial enhancements. While Ma's Destination Wedding is not a VFX-heavy film, it relied on digital artistry to maintain realism. Skies were color-corrected to match the time of day. A key sunset beach scene shot on an overcast afternoon was digitally enhanced with warm lighting, lens flares, and horizon adjustments to match the emotional tone of the scene. Crowd scenes too were augmented. Since CO-era filming restrictions limited extras, digital doubles were added in wide shots to simulate a bustling resort environment. The title sequence, created by in-house graphics designer Melinda Stokes, set the tone with a blend of tropical motifs, animated floral overlays, and vibrant fonts that matched the film's lighthearted aesthetic. The end credits included behind-the-scenes photos of the cast, reinforcing the communal energy that carried through the production. Perhaps the most ambitious editorial challenge came from Perry's triple role performance. In scenes where Madea, Joe, and Brian interact, seamless compositing was essential. Each take had to be spatially locked, lit identically, and timed to Perry's alternating performances. These composite shots required frame-by-frame alignment and rotoscoping executed by Derek Cannon, the film's lead compositor. Even subtle elements like shadows on the floor, overlapping hand gestures, had to be digitally tweaked to preserve realism. The result is a sequence of conversations that feel fluid, even though each line was filmed in isolation. Post-production concluded within 6 weeks of the final shoot. A blistering timeline by industry standards, but a familiar tempo in Perry's filmmaking ecosystem. The final cut, timed at 1 hour and 44 minutes, was delivered to Netflix in early March 2025, followed by localized subtitling and audio mixes for international release. In reflection, the post-production phase of Ma's Destination Wedding was not an act of embellishment. It was an act of engineering, a feat of structural design that turned swift production into cinematic coherence. What emerges as a film that, while built for comfort over complexity, still reveals its technical mastery in every clean edit, every layered laugh track, and every sunset that wasn't really there. In the quiet hum of edit bays and sound booths, the chaos of family comedy and commitment was shaped into a singular cinematic vacation. Ask ChatGPT budget and box office collection. A streaming-era success story wrapped in efficiency in the evolving landscape of film distribution. Madea's Destination Wedding 2025 stands as a defining case study in how cinematic success can be reimagined outside the walls of traditional theaters. Gone are the days when box office receipts alone defined a film's impact. In their place, a new metric has emerged: streaming dominance. And no one wields this model more effectively than Tyler Perry. Production budget: luxury on a tight leash. From its conception, Madea's Destination Wedding was engineered with a lean, high-efficiency production model. While official budget disclosures were never made public, insiders estimate the cost hovered around $20 million, a figure consistent with Perry's recent work for Netflix and similar in scale to earlier media films like A Media Family Funeral 2019. But what makes this budget remarkable isn't its size, it's how far it stretches. The production utilized a hybrid approach. A core of the film was shot on sound stages at Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, with select location sequences filmed in the Dominican Republic to simulate the Bahamian setting. This bifurcated model minimized travel costs while maximizing exotic aesthetic. Sets were designed to be modular. Resort rooms redressed as restaurants, courtyards transformed into wedding venues. Every dollar spent was doubled in narrative function. Perry's ability to operate outside the traditional Hollywood system, owning his studio, writing his scripts, and directing and starring himself, meant massive savings on overhead, union costs, and creative intermediaries. That efficiency becomes a hallmark of his financial strategy. With minimal crew rotation, limited reliance on external vendors, and fast shooting schedules, only 11 days of principal photography, Madea's Destination Wedding emerged not as a blockbuster in form, but as a blockbuster in function. Box office receipts, none by design. Madea's Destination Wedding did not receive a theatrical release. There was no red carpet premiere at AMC, no IMAX campaign, and no ticket sales. The film was released exclusively on Netflix on July 11, 2025, bypassing box office entirely. This decision wasn't a limitation, it was a strategy. Perry's ongoing deal with Netflix has allowed him to release films directly to a global subscriber base, trading in ticket sales for immediate accessibility and broader cultural penetration. The choice to go direct to streaming was also logistical. It offered a faster post-production timeline, eliminated the risk of box office underperformance, and aligned with the digital viewing habits of his most loyal fan base. In previous years, a Madea movie would open to $25 million domestically and finish with upwards of $70 million worldwide. Here, traditional grosses were replaced with viewer statistics, and those numbers were staggering. Streaming performance, a digital triumph. Within 2 days of release, Madea's Destination Wedding climbed to #1 on Netflix's U.S. film chart, dethroning major animation releases and high-profile thrillers. Globally, it landed at #2 among all English-language Netflix films for the week of its debut, amassing 19.1 million views, a figure translating to over 35 million hours watched in just 1 week. These are not merely engagement numbers. In Netflix's ecosystem, where visibility directly translates into subscriber retention, Destination Wedding was a massive win. For context, Perry's earlier Netflix outing, A Madea Homecoming 2022, became one of the most watched films globally in its debut week, and the new installment followed suit with even stronger momentum. The viewership demographics also revealed depth. Not only did the film trend in the US, but it also charted in Canada, the UK, Jamaica, and Nigeria, reflecting the global resonance of Perry's storytelling, specifically his blend of African-American family drama, humor, and spiritual reflection, marketing and release strategy, minimal-focused, effective, unlike studio tentpoles with multi-million-dollar promotional budgets. Madea's Destination Wedding relied primarily on Perry's own platform. His announcement on Instagram calling this his 30th film created instant viral traction. The trailer dropped just 2 weeks before release, low by industry standards, but the campaign leaned on the loyalty of Perry's built-in audience. Netflix complemented this with homepage placement, push notifications, and global thumbnail prioritization. Word of mouth spread quickly with TikTok edits, meme culture, and YouTube reactions, driving further engagement. Return on investment, high yield, low risk. While Netflix does not publicly assign dollar values to individual titles, the success of Madea's Destination Wedding is visible in its metrics. Over 19 million views in 7 days. Top-tier charting across multiple regions, social media virality, and continued meme relevance. High rewatchability due to comedic structure and ensemble dynamic. In a theatrical context, 19 million viewers would equate to a box office revenue of approximately $190–250 million, depending on ticket pricing and international splits. While streaming value is calculated differently, the ROI in viewer retention, subscription appeal, and brand value for Netflix is undeniable. Franchise impact, legacy, and longevity. This film further cements Madea as one of the most enduring American comedic icons. Her draw hasn't diminished. Perry's model shows how legacy franchises can thrive in digital spaces without ever touching a cinema screen. The success also signals to other filmmakers that ownership, speed, and controlled execution can compete with and even surpass tentpole projects when distributed smartly. Conclusion: success beyond the ticket stub, Madea's Destination Wedding may not have racked up ticket sales or box office grosses, but it succeeded in a more modern, scalable way as a streaming juggernaut. Through calculated budgeting, strategic filming, and an engaged fan base, it proved that cinema's emotional power and financial potential can flourish just as easily in the living room as on the big screen. In the end, this wasn't just a film. It was a business model, a cultural event, and a reaffirmation that Tyler Perry's empire is not only intact, but thriving in the digital age. Ask ChatGPT. Interesting facts. Behind the laughter, beyond the frame, the world of Madea's Destination Wedding 2025 is brimming with color, comedy, and chaos. But behind the polished performances and beachside backdrops lies a production riddled with fascinating quirks, quiet improvisations, and unscripted brilliance. These are the textured layers, the kind only revealed in between takes, on late-night rewrites, or through technical innovation born of necessity. Here are the most compelling, behind-the-scenes facts and curiosities that shaped this Caribbean-set family circus into the global streaming sensation it became. One, Tyler Perry shot the entire film in just 11 days. This may sound implausible, but it's true. Ma's Destination Wedding was filmed in only 11 days. Terry is famously efficient, having honed his rapid shooting style over decades. His crew is trained for this tempo. Rehearsals are tight, and the actors, many of whom are longtime collaborators, work like a live stage ensemble. The precision required to juggle multiple locations, triple character performances, and large group scenes in such a short span is staggering. And yet Perry pulled it off again too. Perry played 3 characters often in the same scene. While longtime fans are used to Tyler Perry doubling up as Madea and Joe, this film expanded the challenge by giving more screen time to Brian Perry's straight-laced, emotionally reserved character. In scenes where all 3 appear, Perry performed each role individually, then digitally stitched them together in post-production using motion control rigs and body doubles. He would act against pre-recorded audio or a line reading assistant. Each line had to be precisely timed for facial expressions and physical interaction to match, creating a complex ballet of performance and technology. 3. The beach wedding scene was almost ruined by a tropical storm. The iconic beach wedding scene, which appears near the film's climax, was filmed over 2 days in the Dominican Republic. On the second day, a tropical storm threatened to delay production. The crew rushed to shoot key emotional moments in the early morning under darkening skies, while production assistants held up wind blockers just off camera. The final sunset you see in the film, completely artificial, added in post-production with a digital matte and color-corrected sky. 4. Ma's wardrobe was designed to parody elite resort culture. Costume designer Crystal Hayes crafted Ma's Caribbean outfits with intentional absurdity, from flamboyant palm leaf prints to rhinestone-encrusted sandals. Every item was meant to parody upper-class resort vacationers who flaunt their wealth without subtlety. One outfit inspired by cruise ship retirees featured a visor, a floral muumuu, and 7 necklaces layered for comedic excess. Perry loved it so much he insisted on wearing it in a dinner scene not originally scripted for that. Costume. 5. A major monologue was improvised moments before filming. The scene where Brian confronts Tiffany about her impulsive decision to marry Xavier was originally written with sharp fatherly anger. However, moments before shooting, Perry decided it was too on the nose. He pulled Diamond White aside and rewrote the scene into a softer, more emotionally vulnerable conversation about missed parenting opportunities. The result was a deeply moving father-daughter moment captured in a single take with real tears and raw silence left in the final cut. 6 drone shots were filmed by a second unit operating separately. To preserve the tight schedule, aerial beach shots were not filmed alongside the main cast. Instead, Perry dispatched a second unit drone team to the Dominican Republic 3 weeks earlier to capture golden hour sweeps of the ocean, palm tree canopies, and resort architecture. These shots were later spliced into transitions between scenes filmed in Atlanta sound stages, giving the illusion of continuous island immersion. 7. Joe's raunchy one-liners were 70% improvised. Perry's portrayal of Joe, Ma's scandalous brother, is a masterclass in comedic provocation. According to cast and crew, nearly 70% of Joe's lines were improvised on the spot. Perry often refused to show the cast what Joe would say during takes. This ensured that actors' reactions were authentic, especially Cassi Davis, Pat, and Aunt Bam, who reportedly broke character multiple times from laughter. 8. Several supporting characters were named after Perry's childhood friends as an inside nod. Perry named characters like Tyrone, Miss Lucille, and Deacon Roderick after real-life neighbors and church members he grew up around in New Orleans. Some mannerisms and punchlines were lifted directly from memories of church potlucks, community barbecues, and Sunday school dramas. 9. Tyler. Perry used real wedding planners as consultants to authentically capture the spectacle and stress of a destination. Wedding. Perry hired 2 real-life event coordinators from Miami and Nassau as consultants. During pre-production, they help structure the wedding day timeline, select floral schemes, and advise on venue aesthetics. Their expertise influenced not just the decor, but also the pacing of the ceremony scene, including the comedic sequence, where Madea interrupts to give her own version of wedding vows. Number 10, a gospel track was recorded in a single take by a local choir, the emotionally rich gospel hymn that plays over the wedding montage. Wade in the Blessing was recorded by a Bahamian community choir during post-production. The session was meant to be a demo, but the rawness and spiritual fervor of the take moved Perry so much that he insisted it be used in the final cut without edits. That choir, previously unknown outside of the Caribbean, is now being approached for soundtrack collaborations by other filmmakers. 11. A deleted scene featured a cameo by a major Netflix star. One scene, which didn't make the final cut, featured a surprise cameo by Michelle Bao, known for her role in Survival of Eyes. The Thist. She played a sassy resort manager who had to mediate between Madea and a drunk tourist. While the scene was hilarious, it was ultimately removed to preserve narrative pacing. Perry has hinted it may appear in future bonus material. Conclusion. The island of improvisation and intention, Ma's destination wedding may appear breezy and chaotic, but its foundation is a blend of calculated decisions, cultural callbacks, spontaneous brilliance, tight technical coordination. Every joke, every tear, every gust of ocean breeze that makes it to the screen is backed by a tale of clever craftsmanship. These behind-the-scenes truths reveal a film not just made, but lived, layered with laughter, reimagined on the fly, and immortalized under Caribbean sun that shone both on camera and behind it. Audience reception and critical acclaim, a storm of streaming, a divide in perspective. When Madea's Destination Wedding premiered on Netflix in July 2025, it arrived not just as another installment in Tyler Perry's storied franchise, but as a cultural event, a milestone marking the 30th film in Perry's cinematic journey. Its reception was swift, immense, and polarizing. Audiences embraced it in droves, catapulting it to streaming heights, while critics met it with familiar skepticism and sharpened pens. But beneath the surface of metrics and reviews lies a layered portrait of how a film can resonate powerfully with one community while confounding another. A streaming avalanche. The numbers speak first within just 48 hours of its release. Madea's Destination Wedding rocketed to #1 on Netflix's U.S. film chart, dethroning major animated blockbusters and high-budget thrillers. By the end of its first week, it claimed the #2 spot globally among English language films, logging an astonishing 19 million views. These figures aren't merely digital vanity metrics. They represent tens of millions of viewer hours, hundreds of thousands of households engaged, and a cross-generational appetite that continues to power Perry's creative empire. The film's release was accompanied by a wave of celebratory social media posts from fans and from Perry himself. He thanked his loyal base, proudly calling it movie number 30, a subtle nod to both the legacy and longevity of the media universe. Streaming platforms, where the value of content lies in engagement rather than ticket sales, hailed the film as a success. It achieved what most mid-budget comedies struggle to do, grab national attention in an era of algorithm-fed apathy. The audience pulse, laughter, loyalty, and lingering doubts. Audience reception, particularly among longtime media fans, was largely enthusiastic. Viewers praised the return of familiar faces, the continuation of media's irreverent wit, and the visual shift to a tropical setting that gave the franchise a fresh backdrop. Social media buzz centered around Joe's one-liners, Mia's outrageous beachwear, and the comedic tension between Tiffany. and Xavier's families. For many, the film felt like a comforting reunion. Family dysfunction in paradise served with Perry's signature seasoning of heart and hilarity. However, not all reactions were euphoric, even among supporters. Critiques surfaced. Some viewers noted the compressed pacing, the lack of character development, and the feeling that the film was rushed through production. Others expressed a desire for deeper emotional stakes, especially in the father-daughter subplot between Brian and Tiffany. On platforms like Reddit and Letterboxd, a recurring sentiment emerged. The magic is still there, but it's starting to feel too familiar. Critical acclaim, a familiar cold shoulder. While audiences turned out in digital waves, critics met his destination wedding with a critical freeze. Major outlets dismissed the film as formulaic, overly broad, and aesthetically uninspired. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film scored a meager 8% from critics, reflecting widespread dissatisfaction with its storytelling, structure, comedic style, and technical execution. Critics from outlets such as Decider and RogerEbot.com criticized the film's low-stakes plotting, sloppy editing, and toddler-grade humor. They took issue with Perry's tendency to reuse comedic tropes, noting that while his efficiency as a filmmaker is impressive, it often comes at the expense of cinematic polish. Some reviews compared the film to a live sitcom, suggesting that its tonal swings and improvisational looseness left it feeling more like a recorded stage play than a feature film. Yet, it's worth noting that this divide is not new. Perry's work has consistently sparked tension between popular acclaim and critical judgment. While critics often lambast his films for their perceived lack of refinement, audiences, particularly African-American viewers, see something deeper: authenticity, relatability, and representation rarely found in mainstream Hollywood comedies. The cultural impact, a franchise that endures despite the critical blowback. Medea's Destination Wedding reinforced Perry's unique space in the entertainment industry. No other filmmaker commands such a direct connection with his audience. No other franchise, built almost entirely around one man's vision, has maintained this level of relevance over 30 films without the support of traditional awards, circuits, or critical accolades. The film's ability to top charts, spark online discourse, and inspire fan edits speaks to the cultural staying power of Madea. Her voice, brash, unfiltered, and anchored in lived experience, continues to resonate. And while critics may tire of the formula, Perry's fans understand that it's not about reinvention. It's about reunion, a split verdict, popular triumph, artistic repetition, and the final analysis: Medea's Destination Wedding embodies the dual nature of Tyler Perry's filmmaking legacy. It is at once a roaring success and a creative compromise. It delivers laughter, familiarity, and brief emotional honesty. Even as it struggles with depth, structure, and critical approval, its strength lies not in cinematic evolution, but in cultural affirmation. For audiences, it's a welcome invitation to laugh with family, however dysfunctional. For critics, it's another reminder that popularity does not always equal progress. And for Perry himself, it's yet another notch in a cinematic legacy that remains undeniably his own. Whether loved or loathed, Medea's Destination Wedding got the world talking. And in this age of fleeting content, that alone is a triumph. Ask ChatGPT, final review and cinematic verdict: a comedic retreat with familiar rhythms and fading echoes. Medea's Destination Wedding is less a standalone cinematic piece and more a vibrant echo of Tyler Perry's long-standing symphony of domestic chaos, spiritual warmth, and generational comedy. As the 30th installment in Perry's Madea-centric catalog, it arrives with both the weight of legacy and the fatigue of familiarity. And while it tries to dress itself in the bright linens of a Caribbean vacation, what emerges is a familiar family dinner served on a beachfront tablecloth. The film's greatest strength lies in its deep understanding of its audience. Tyler Perry does not make movies for critics or for formalist praise. He crafts films for communities, for churchgoers, for black families who've weathered storms with laughter, and for fans who find comfort in the voice of a non-nonsense grandmother clad in floral print and thunderous wisdom. Madea's Destination Wedding honors that audience without apology. From a structural standpoint, the film is built around a well-tread premise, a wedding that brings dysfunctional family members together, only for secrets, generational divides, and hilariously inappropriate behavior to threaten the happy ending. It's a plotline we've seen in Perry's work before, but with the twist of a tropical setting, though this twist serves more as decor than narrative innovation. The Caribbean local is vibrant, but rarely explored beyond establishing shots and beachside bickering. Instead, the real setting is Perry's tried and true emotional battleground. The living room, the dinner table, the showdown under string lights, and over family grievances. Performance-wise, Perry's triple actor as Madea, Joe, and Brian is both technically impressive and thematically crowded. Madea remains the magnetic center, commanding each scene with blunt force wisdom and perfectly timed shade. Joe, while providing some of the film's most raunchy comedic moments, often feels more caricature than character. Brian, the quiet moral compass, is underused. Despite having the film's most emotionally honest arc with his daughter Tiffany, supporting actors like Diamond White and Xavier Smalls perform earnestly, but are often overshadowed by the larger-than-L life energy of the veteran cast. Their love story functions more as a plot mechanism than a fully realized emotional journey. From a technical perspective, the film showcases Perry's efficiency. The 11-day shooting schedule, modular sets, and quick post-production turnaround are impressive feats of industrial filmmaking. But with that speed comes visible shortcuts, abrupt transitions, inconsistent lighting in composite scenes, and pacing that rushes emotional beats in favor of comedic rhythm. The editing is serviceable but rarely stylish. The cinematography, while warm and colorful, doesn't push beyond functional framing. Its filmmaking is fast food designed for instant gratification, but unlikely to linger on the palate. Where the film shines is in its use of music and emotional cues. The original gospel hymn, Wade in the Blessing, recorded by a Bahamian choir, lends authentic spiritual resonance to the wedding climax. Bomp's score moves gently between comedy and sentiment, helping to elevate scenes that might otherwise fall flat. In moments where dialogue falters or improvisation drifts, the music steps in like a quiet usher, guiding the audience back to emotional clarity. Yet, for all its heart, Madea's Destination Wedding struggles with thematic depth. The film raises questions about parental overreach, generational trauma, and the performance of love, but rarely explores them with any sustained complexity. Characters often reach catharsis within a single conversation. Conflicts dissolve under a monologue or a laugh track. The resolution, like the setup, feels more like an obligation than a revelation. Still, to judge the film purely by traditional cinematic standards would be to miss its intention. This is not a film made for festival acclaim or Oscar buzz. This is a film for family nights, for church groups, for women who see themselves in Madea's tough love, and for communities who find joy and recognition. Its power lies not in originality, but in consistency. In a media landscape where franchises often shift tone or abandon their roots, Perry offers something rare: continuity of voice. In the final analysis, Madea's Destination Wedding is a cultural comfort food, rich in familiarity, modest in ambition, and deeply personal to its creator. It is neither Perry's best nor his worst. It is, like many family gatherings, both joyous and messy, touching and chaotic, nourishing and exhausting. Cinematic verdict, 6.5 in. Not a reinvention, but a reaffirmation. Tyler Perry delivers another media chapter that plays the hits, sings the hit, gospel, and sidesteps cinematic polish in favor of emotional shorthand. For fans, it's a welcome reunion. For critics, a reminder that some stories thrive far beyond the reach of critical metrics. Ultimately, Madea's Destination Wedding is not about the destination. It's about who you bring with you. And as long as audiences keep RSVPing, Madea will keep showing up, suitcase in hand, ready to stir the pot. My friends, this is not a movie. This is an unapologetically in-depth breakdown of Media's Destination Wedding 2025. For fans who crave both drama and drag, subscribe for more fierce cinematic deep dives. Can love survive Media's judgment? What happens when a surprise destination wedding turns into a showdown of generational drama, class conflict, and media-level interruptions? Set in the sun-drenched Bahamian Islands, this installment of Tyler Perry's franchise unleashes a hurricane of family tensions, buried secrets, and one big question: should they even be getting married at all? Title, director, cast, studio, and release year title. Media's Destination Wedding director, writer, producer, Tyler Perry. Cast: Tyler Perry, Diamond White, Xavier Smalls, Cassi Davis. Patton, Tamela, Mann, David Mann Studio, Tyler Perry Studios, Netflix original. Release year 2025. This marks Perry's 13th media film and his 6th with Netflix, cementing a lucrative legacy that mixes morality plays with over-the-top comedy. Storyline recap. A. Tropical firestorm. Tiffany shocks her family by announcing a sudden engagement to flashy rapper Xavier. Their plan, a wedding in 2 weeks in the Bahamas. But they didn't account for media and the entire clan showing up, bringing along emotional baggage heavier than any suitcase. The vacation quickly becomes a battlefield of egos, generational wisdom, and unresolved parental drama. Secrets unravel. The wedding plan teeters on the edge of collapse, and media decides that sometimes the best gift you can give a bride is the truth. Star cast and performances. Tyler Perry as Media Joe Bryan. Effortlessly juggling triple roles, Perry leans into exaggerated comedy while giving Bryan a moment of real vulnerability, especially when parental pride clashes with financial breakdowns. Diamond White as Tiffany, she embodies the modern, impulsive bride with a fiery spirit. Her chemistry with small Xavier is believable even when the plot tests their romance. Xavier Smalls as Xavier, a cocky but surprisingly sincere presence. Xavier is more than just a caricature. His scene with media near the beach bonfire is a turning point. Supporting turns by Cassi Davis Patton, Tamela Mann, and David Mann offer comedic rhythm and spiritual grounding. Technical department direction. Perry keeps the story zipping at sitcom speed, but sacrifices depth for laughs in several scenes. Cinematography shot partially in the Bahamas and at Tyler Perry Studios. The blend of real location and set recreation sometimes shows, but the bright tropical color palette pops. Editing. Larry Stone's editing is swift and comedic with sharp scene cuts that keep energy high even if some emotional beats are undercooked. Music and emotional resonance. Young Nick Bontemps delivers a Caribbean-tinged score that meshes steel drums with gospel-tinged piano, enhancing both the comedy and family tension. The score punctuates key moments, especially during Tiffany's pre-wedding doubts and Mia's beach monologue about loving wisely. Pre-production conceived as a quarantine project, Perry developed the script over just a few weeks. Inspired by real stories of rushed destination weddings, Perry wanted to explore what it means to rush into forever. Pre-production began in fall 2023 with set designs replicating Bahamian resorts. Built on Atlanta sound stages, location scouts added real aerial drone shots for transition scenes. Filming the film was shot in a blistering 11-day schedule across Atlanta and the Dominican Republic. Most of the resort interiors were built at Perry's sprawling studio lot, while select exterior scenes, like the beach ceremony, were shot on real Bahamian shores. Despite the fast pace, the cast leaned into improv, with Perry allowing unscripted dialogue for comic effect. The cast reported an intensely collaborative environment with real resort staff used as extras in crowd-back scenes. Post-production color grading emphasized golden sunlight and turquoise waters, giving the movie a vivid postcard look. Sound mixing had to work overtime, especially during beach scenes with wind interference. Foley artists recreated everything from sandals on tile to media suitcase wheels over cobblestone. ADR was used extensively due to overlapping dialogue on set. Budget and box office estimated production cost $20 million. Netflix debut July 11, 2025. Result: no theatrical release, but became the most watched film globally on Netflix during its debut weekend. a massive success in terms of streaming metrics. Interesting. Facts: Tyler Perry played 3 roles again, but with less makeup, leaning into voice changes instead. The wedding vows were rewritten 3 times, even mid-shoot, as Perry wanted the final vows to feel genuine, not sitcom. Beach scenes were filmed under extreme heat, with the cast during takes in 90-degree sun. The film was edited and locked within 2 weeks, a Perry record. Audience and critical reception critics were lukewarm, calling it formulaic, but endearing in spurts. However, audience reactions were glowing, especially among longtime media fans. Social media exploded with fan art, memes, and parodies of Joe's monologue about prenups. Final review and verdict. While it doesn't reinvent the wheel, Media's Destination Wedding delivers what it promises: laughter, love, and loud family fights. The emotional center, though lightly handled, resonates thanks to strong performances in the Perry patented blend of preachy and playful. Verdict: a breezy, ridiculous, feel-good family brawl on a beach. Best enjoyed with iced tea and low expectations. Conclusion: in the end, Mia's Destination Wedding is less about tropical romance and more about family truths. It asks, can chaos be cathartic? Can laughter be a sermon? Perry's world, yes, and then some. Star cast and character performances, the theater of the familiar turned fierce. There are few cinematic universes as recognizable and tonally distinct as Tyler Perry's Madea franchise. By 2025, with Ma's Destination Wedding, audiences have grown attuned to its rhythm. A blend of slapstick, sermon, family, chaos, and raw emotional reckoning. Yet what continues to fuel this machine, what animates the fast into something more meaningful, is the ensemble. The performances here do not merely fill roles, they carry generational identities, familial tensions, and cultural critique, masked beneath comedic caricatures and thunderous monologues. At the nucleus, of course, is Tyler Perry himself, playing not 1 but 3 characters with strikingly different energies. Perry's performance as Mabel Ma Simmons remains the gravitational pull of the film. She's no longer surprising, but she is still a force of nature. What is striking in this iteration is not the volume of her tirades or the audacity of her fashion, but the nuance in her restraint. In one particular scene, as she observes the young couple arguing near a beach bonfire, she stays silent, eyes narrowed, mouth pursed. The storm brews, not from her voice, but from her presence, and when she finally speaks, it lands like scripture. This moment highlights how Perry, even after a dozen films, can sculpt power from stillness, not just slapstick. Equally effective are Perry's turns as Joe and Brian. Joe, the uncensored, often inappropriate elder, is more animated than ever, offering his signature one-liners and sexual absurdities. But Perry smartly places Joe in scenes where his outbursts juxtapose heavier emotions, especially when he inadvertently reveals long-held family secrets. His crass humor becomes a smoke-okay screen for generational pain, a sharp piece of character writing. Brian, on the other hand, is the franchise's moral anchor. Here, his conflict as Tiffany's father deepens. He oscillates between traditional fatherly disappointment and quiet insecurity over his daughter's independence. Perry plays Brian with a calm that's often undercut by frustration, especially in a hotel scene where Brian, overwhelmed by wedding costs and emotional stakes, delivers a soliloquy about failed expectations. Perry's triple embodiment thus becomes a thematic triangle: chaos, corruption, and caution, all colliding in the same family. Diamond White, portraying Tiffany, offers one of the film's few performances not filtered through parody. She is impulsive, brash, romantic, but also searching. Tiffany is a character written to irritate the elders and elicit judgment from the audience. Yet White infuses her with a layered sensitivity. Her scenes with Xavier show genuine chemistry, charged with young lust, yes, but also undercut by fear. Her nervousness in confronting her parents' disapproval, and especially her moment alone before the wedding ceremony where she gazes at herself in a mirror and whispers her vows, is one of the film's most grounded emotional beats. Xavier Smalls as Xavier plays a flashy, ostentatious rapper who initially feels like a trope, a fame-chasing figure who seems built to be exposed. But Smalls brings depth through discomfort. Xavier is not a smooth-talking player. He's a kid trying to live up to the image he created. His interactions with Ma are particularly potent. In one moment, he confesses to Ma that he grew up without family, that this loud, messy wedding is the first time he's felt like someone's future. Smalls delivers this confession with a mix of pride and vulnerability, allowing the audience to reassess the character not as a mistake, but as a man. In progress. Cassi Davis Patton as Aunt Bam is the comedic pulse of the supporting cast. Davis Patton understands timing like a jazz musician, improvising when needed, pulling back for punchlines to land. Aunt Bam is more than comic relief. She is the bridge between old wisdom and chaotic youth. Her verbal sparring with Ma feels rehearsed in the best way, as if two seasoned actresses are dancing through years of chemistry, trusting the beat. Tamela Mann as Cora and David Mann as Mr. Brown reprise their roles with expected fervor. Cora's attempts to maintain spiritual order are hilariously undermined by her own pettiness. While Mr. Brown's physical comedy reaches cartoonish levels, still their interactions provide warmth, the sense of extended family that has always been. Central to the Ma universe, Taja Simpson as Deborah, Tiffany's Thou. Mother and Brian's ex-wife offers a subdued, surprisingly sharp turn. She is the quiet disapprover, the watchful skeptic. Her scenes, especially those with Brian, crackle with unresolved tension. Simpson plays Deborah not as a villain or a nag, but as a mother trying to protect her daughter from repeating her mistakes. Her confrontation with Tiffany, equal parts emotional warning and personal confession, adds gravitas. Then there are the background performers, the cousins, the resort staff, the locals who orbit the chaos. Many are there for punchlines or sight-touch gags, yet even they are allowed slivers of character. A standout is Jermaine Harris as Tyrone, the overeager cousin who tries to DJ the ceremony and ends up interrupting the vows with trap remixes. He may exist for laughs, but Harris plays him with such earnestness that even his failures feel like contributions to the family mosaic. What? Ma's Destination Wedding understands, perhaps better than many of its predecessors, is that performance in the Mayverse must operate on two frequencies, caricature and conviction. Every actor is asked to be both absurd and sincere, both symbolic and specific. The result is a theatrical world where humor is a safe defense mechanism and drama emerges from dysfunction. This cast doesn't just act, they testify. Each character becomes a vessel for themes of identity, redemption, and legacy. Through them, Perry crafts a wedding not just of people, but of generations colliding, confessing, and ultimately coexisting under the Caribbean sun. Technical department, crafting comedy, Under the Caribbean Sun. When examining MDA's Destination Wedding 2025 through the lens of cinematic technique, one finds a curious blend of efficiency and duck flourish. An aesthetic blueprint born not from grand ambition, but from Tyler Perry's distinct philosophy of rapid execution and tonal familiarity. While the film is built primarily to entertain, the layers behind its technical choices reveal the unique mechanics of a franchise that has survived not on innovation, but on precision and pace. At the helm of the project is Perry himself, not just as writer, director, and actor, but as the key orchestrator of technical rhythm. He has long been known for his fast turnaround productions, and MDA's Destination Wedding continues that trend, shot in just 11 days. Such a timeline demands a technical team with rigorous coordination and adaptability, and the results are a film that is visually bright, sonically clear, and narratively cohesive, though not without moments of flatness and rushed execution. Cinematography in the film, led by Michael Watson, straddles the boundary between postcard luxury and studio-bound containment. The Bahamas setting offers natural opulence, turquoise seas, golden sunlight, lush palm canopies, but much of the film was captured on constructed sets within Tyler Perry Studios. Watson's approach is to simulate vibrancy through high-key lighting and saturated color grading. Scenes that take place on beaches or balconies are drenched in sunlight, lending the film a glossy, almost artificial sheen, which, while visually pleasing, sometimes betrays the boundaries of its studio-based limitations. The use of camera is functional rather than experimental. Most shots are static or modestly tracked, preserving spatial clarity for ensemble blocking. Perry's dialogue-heavy scenes rely on over-the-shoulder and medium group shots, often prioritizing coverage over composition. However, a few sequences, particularly the nighttime bonfire and the pre-wedding dressing room confrontations, break from this simplicity. In these, Watson experiments with shadows and close-up focus, subtly underscoring emotional tension with chiaroscuro contrast. These moments remind the viewer that visual storytelling, though secondary in Perry's world, is still capable of elegance. Production design plays an essential role in masking the limitations of schedule and space. The resort environment, crafted by Richard Havisham and his team, leans heavily into vacation iconography. Flowing white curtains, wicker furniture, palm leaves, and faux marble flooring. These elements are curated to suggest extravagance without requiring actual international location shooting. The design strategy is modular corridors, suites, and common areas reused from multiple angles to simulate scale. Occasionally, the scenes show a reused background in two separate scenes intended as different locations, highlights the limits of the illusion. Still, the sets serve their purpose in evoking warmth, affluence, and the fish-out-of-water humor that the narrative demands. Costume design executed by Crystal Hazlett embraces flamboyance as a character shorthand. Madea's wardrobe alone is a rolling catalog of contradictions, animal prints, tropical hats, and sequin gowns. Each outfit functioning like armor, humor, and legacy all at once. The younger characters such as Tiffany and Xavier are dressed in exaggerated representations of modern youth culture. Oversized sunglasses, designer leisure wear, and flashy accessories. These choices, while occasionally bordering on parody, align with the tonal hyperbole that defines Perry's visual universe. Costume in this film is not just aesthetic, it is narrative shorthand. Each outfit a signal to the audience of who holds power, who seeks approval, and who has something to hide. Sound design, a more subdued yet essential component, maintains clarity amid chaos. The film's heavy reliance on verbal wit and layered dialogue demands clean audio engineering. David Esposa, the supervising sound editor, ensures crisp vocal tracks across multiple environments, whether indoor echo, beach, wind, or crowd noise. What stands out here is restraint. There is minimal use of dioetic sound beyond dialogue and day. The ambient textures, crashing waves, rustling palms, or distant music are used sparingly. This creates a clean auditory palette, though some may argue it flattens the realism of the setting. Music and score handled by Jong Nick Bontemps inject personality where the visuals sometimes falter. Bontemps blends Caribbean percussion with Southern gospel, creating a tonal hybridity that suits the narrative's themes of displacement and family identity. The vague score rarely overwhelms the scenes, but adds texture, notably during emotional confrontations or flashbacks. Subtle piano and string arrangements support the drama without undercutting the comedic rhythm. Editing, managed by Larry Stahn, is perhaps the most pivotal force behind the film's fast-paced delivery. With only 11 days of shooting, editing becomes not just a post-production task, but a concurrent storytelling strategy. The cuts are brisk, especially in group scenes where Sexton jumps between reaction shots to preserve momentum. Transition scenes. Drone shots of the ocean, resort exteriors are reused to smooth over temporal gaps. However, some edits feel abrupt, particularly in emotionally significant moments where an extra beat could have elevated performance. This reveals the delicate balance between Perry's efficiency and cinematic depth. In choosing speed, some nuances do it. Inevitably sacrificed. Visual effects are minimal, restricted to background enhancements and occasional digital sky replacements. The real effects work is practical. Lighting adjustments, set manipulation, and costume-driven comedy. This restraint is in keeping with the franchise's ethos. Let performance, not spectacle, lead. In the Final analysis. The technical department of Madea's destination wedding functions not as a stage for innovation, but as a machine of reliability. Its goal is not to awe, but to support, not to dazzle, but to deliver. And yet within these limitations lies a certain mastery. Perry has built an empire on knowing exactly what his audience expects and how quickly he can give it to them. The technical team behind this film executes that vision with competence, cohesion, and occasional flickers of cinematic beauty. It may not be technically groundbreaking, but in its own way it is a marvel of controlled chaos, of a well-oiled engine humming beneath a bright, loud, and deeply southern wedding storm. Music and emotional resonance, the sound of laughter, memory, and the unspoken in Madea's destination wedding. Tyler Perry once again delivers a family spectacle, wrapped in comedy, chaos, and caricature. Yet, what keeps the whirlwind grounded? What draws a line from the slapstick to the soulful is the film's music. This time, beneath the Bahamian backdrop and flamboyant familial drama, the score and sound design become an emotional compass. Under the guidance of composer Jong Nick Bontemps, the film's music accomplishes what dialogue often avoids, conveying the unresolved, the nostalgic, and the vulnerable. Perry's films have always walked a tightrope between fast and feeling. The musical choices in Madea's destination wedding reinforce this duality. From the very first frame, Bontemps' score sets the tone, a blend of breezy Caribbean rhythm and southern gospel chords. A ukulele-laced overture dances under the title credits, paired with seagull cries and ocean tides. It seems lighthearted at first glance, but even this airy motif is layered, minor. Keys slipping in like undertows, hinting at the underlying family tensions that will surface later. This opening sequence reminds us that the tone of this journey may be joyful, but the baggage it carries is anything but weightless. Throughout the film, Bombs uses musical contrast as a narrative device. For example, in one early scene, Tiffany announces her engagement in front of the entire family at a beachside dinner. The moment is pure. Spectacle. Drinks spill, chairs screech. Joe makes an off-color joke about alimony, but what carries the subtext is the underscore, a plucky guitar theme quickly interrupted by dissonant piano chords. The music bends with the family's emotional whiplash, suggesting that behind the performative excitement lies hesitation, judgment, and fear. The characters may not say it, but the music does. Leitmotifs play a major role in shaping the film's emotional terrain. Tiffany and Xavier, as the central couple, are given a melodic theme rooted in a gentle steel pan melody, playful but uncertain, as if it hasn't yet matured into harmony. Every time they share a quiet moment, especially when they express doubts about the wedding, this theme returns, albeit altered. In one instance, during a moonlit walk on the beach, the melody is slowed down and underscored by ambient synth pads. In another, during a confrontation in the bridal suite, it's stripped to just a single echoing steel drum note. Through these variations, Bontemps traces their emotional arc, not just as lovers, but as individuals wrestling with fear and expectation. Perry also allows space for diegetic music songs heard by the characters themselves. A notable example occurs during the pre-wedding rehearsal, when the DJ cousin Tyrone fumbles between wedding classics and hip-hop club tracks. The result is comedic chaos, but beneath it lies something more textured, generational dissonance. The older family members cringe at the bass drops while the younger crowd cheers. This contrast becomes more than a joke. It's a commentary on evolving traditions, on the tension between honoring one's roots and forging new ones. The soundtrack in this context becomes a generational battleground. The most emotionally potent use of music comes not during a wedding moment, but during a quiet scene of reflection. Brian, played with quiet gravitas by Perry himself, sits alone in his hotel room staring at an old family photo of Tiffany. The background score here is minimal. A piano theme, barely audible, begins to play. It is simple, composed of only a few notes, but it captures everything unsaid. The regrets of a father who let go too early. The anxiety of a man who sees his daughter rushing into something he can't control. There, is no monologue, no exposition, just music and memory. It's in this silence that Bon Temp's score finds its most powerful voice. Another standout musical moment occurs near the end during Mad's final wedding blessing. The ceremony, though chaotic in the lead-up, finds an unexpected stillness. As Madea addresses the couple, speaking not as a matriarch, but as a survivor of love's many battles, the score weaves in a gospel refrain sung softly beneath her voice. This refrain, played with subtle organ and layered vocals, echoes themes of forgiveness, legacy, and endurance. It isn't flashy. It doesn't need to be. It allows the audience to feel what the characters are too proud or too broken to say aloud. Vocals are used sparingly, but when they appear, they mark emotional transitions. A key example is the original song Wade in the Blessing performed during the wedding procession. The lyrics draw from African-American spirituals reimagined in a Caribbean context, blending steel drum cadence with gospel harmonies. This fusion captures the film's thematic heart, a diasporic gathering of souls trying to bless something unstable with the weight of tradition and hope. Sound mixing also plays a crucial role in comedic scenes. Music punctuates punchlines, crashing cymbals, comedic stings, record scratches, and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.